Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
I need another outlet where I just talk this stuff out because there's a lot of stuff in there that's like, damn, this is crazy. What is it? What is it like to be you in these times with what's going on? So I have to like express that. And I've been rapping for like 20 plus years. And that was always my way to, no matter what's going on, I have that creative outlet to say whatever I want to say as Righteous Reg and to lay those things down.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by your favorite writer, your favorite rapper, and your favorite podcaster. I'm joined by the one known as Righteous Reg. So, welcome to the show. First of all, did I get that intro correct?
Yes, I want to say I don't know how to start this podcast because I usually start it out by saying your favorite writer, your favorite rapper, your favorite podcaster to start every show. But Tom, I do appreciate you introing me like that. And it is me, Media Man Righteous Reg. I'm so happy to be here.
So, if we take this back, Reg, before we get into any of your amazing work, where do you first discover wrestling, my friend, as an overall fan?
It's been so long now, Tom. I think I had to be like 4 years old or something. I had cousins that were into pro wrestling. So that kind of started the whole thing. And I just remember it being on TV and being super excited to see it. And I remember Bret Hart was my first favorite wrestler. And so he kind of molded the wrestling mind that I have now. So it's been a long time.
You mentioned Bret molding the wrestling mind that you have now. First of all, why did Bret Hart speak to you so much as a fan, do you think, to start off?
I thought about that for years, Tom. I was always like, well, what was it about Bret Hart that really did it for me? And I think back, the first wrestling tape that I ever watched in my life, I remember getting it, borrowing it from a neighbor, and I never gave that tape back to him, was SummerSlam 91. And in SummerSlam 91, Bret Hart wrestles Mr. Perfect in the opening match. And it's like one of the best matches you'll ever see. And so I went years just being like, I love Bret Hart. I love Bret Hart. Then I thought about it. I was like, oh, because my introduction to Bret Hart is one of the best matches of all time. He goes and has that moment with his parents at the end. It's just such a like pivotal moment in my wrestling mind. And he became a big top star in WWE immediately after that. So that was my guy. And he continued to be my guy for a really long time.
You mentioned Bret sort of molded your wrestling mind. This is half a joke, guys, so don't take it too seriously in the comments. Does that mean you hate Goldberg?
Yes, it definitely does. He influenced me, and his influence is high. After what Goldberg said this year, Tom, after his match with Gunther, and
Mm.
basically laughing at the stuff that happened with that, we all understand why Bret Hart has the Goldberg hatred. It's for a reason. This guy is very cocky. This guy still moves kind of how he moved back in the day, which I kind of respect a little bit also. So, yes.
What else did Bret sort of mold in your wrestling mind that you maybe use as a podcaster to this day?
Just the type of wrestling that I like. He was always just it in ring was the most important thing to him. That the wrestling inside the ropes is what told the story. He ended up becoming a great promo and telling all these stories and some of the most infamous wrestling stories of all time. But most of his great work happened when the bell rang. And so I like to base what I do and what I talk about on that. I'm not here to gossip. I don't want to talk about scoops and stories and all that. I'm talking about the wrestlers and what they do in between those ropes and when the TV shows are on.
That's really, really cool, my friend. You mentioned there, obviously, we talked about Bret and Goldberg and things like that. How did your fandom change? Maybe you weren't such a fan of Bret at this point, but how did your fandom change when Bret slipped over to WCW?
Uh, it was weird. It was interesting. I remember watching the Montreal Screwjob and how that made me feel. I didn't know anything about dirt sheets. I didn't know anything
Uh-huh.
about the Wrestling Observer, none of that. And so I watched the pay-per-view live, and it was like, what's happening? And then so when I figured out what happened, Bret Hart's leaving. At that time, I was watching both companies at the time, but my interest was more into WWF at the time because there was the shift. 1997, things were changing, things were moving over, things were crossing over to WWF side. So I didn't really have that much interest in seeing Bret Hart over there. And then when he went over there, and immediately it wasn't, I was immediately like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna be great. So to get that and it not flesh out the way it should have been is very unfortunate. WCW did have some gems at that time, but I was so WWF at the time that I didn't want to see that.
Do you think if WCW hadn't fumbled, bungled, Brett, whatever word you want to use, you would have been more of a WCW kid?
No, because I think at that point, my fandom shifted into not being into one specific wrestler. Like I loved Bret Hart. He was my number one wrestler, but he wasn't the end all be all for me. Like if he had retired that day, I would have been fine and I would have, picked somebody to move over to. Actually, I was a gigantic, ironic enough, Shawn Michaels fan at the time. And like I was
You
super
can't
into
pick both, Reg. That's against wrestling law.
Tom,
The
they were
world's gonna burn.
they were my number one and number two for years, for so long. Like they would switch, like depending on what day I'd be like, it's Sean today. Depending on the other day, it's Brett today. Like that happened for so long. So I was super into DX stuff. So like WWF could do no wrong, and it would have been hard to completely get me to switch over to the other side.
I understand what you're saying completely there. What about now, as we record this in August of 2024? Because I'm not going to lie, I will be sitting on this one for a while, and I've got episodes in the can, if you know what I mean.
Totally.
Where's your current fandom as we record this?
Currently, it's wrestling is at a super interesting time at this point. We're at another one of those transitional phases, I think, because mainstream wrestling on both sides, I think, are super hot right now in different aspects. In the WWE, they getting all the money, they had all the accolades, all the things that they've ever wanted. They're there. On the AEW side, which is the side that I prefer, it's the rest. Like you can see the best match you've ever seen in your entire lifetime on a random Wednesday. Like life has changed so much. Like I have been watching wrestling, like I said, for a long time. There used to be a time if a match happened, the best match you ever seen was in Japan on blah, blah, blah. It happened on a Saturday. You wouldn't see that match for 6 months, sometimes 7 months, 8 months, a year. That's
the
if
kids today don't know how good they have it.
They do not know how lucky they have it. That's if you're lucky enough to tape trade. That's if you're lucky enough to be in that world. But if you don't have that, sometimes it'll take years for you to see a match you wanted to see now. Now it's like you turn on every streaming service. Every wrestling company has a streaming service. Streaming services have wrestling on it now. It's like it's so accessible. YouTube has millions and billions of footage and matches and times and wrestling and all the things you could ever want to see. So it's like it's instant now. You could, like I said, you can see the best match you've ever seen on a Wednesday night, and that level of intensity, the level of everything has upped so high. And in a company like AEW, there's so many great, amazing wrestlers that you could just consistently see that it's like now my taste level is so high because the level of intensity, the level of everything that AEW has brought to the map, having, like I said, the greatest matches of all time you can see on a random Wednesday, that just makes everybody step their game up. The men and women over there do some tremendous work every single week. And so them stepping the level of game up makes other companies step the level of game up. Now independent wrestling is where that's where I kind of get my bread and butter, Tom. They are in such a transitional phase of now it feels like there's wrestlers that think they could immediately get signed to a big company. WWE's pipelines are so insane. They're on the independents. They're in college. They're like, you can essentially, there are some people that start from zero in WWE and end up a WWE wrestler. So a lot of people have that mind state, and it's changed the way the business is, and it's just interesting to see.
How did your, we'll talk about all your other podcasts in a second, but how did your great AEW reviews with a great lady that is Denise Salcedo come about while we're talking about AEW?
Denise, it just kind of happened. It was like a natural thing. Like, I didn't know Denise Salcedo. She was friends of the homie Will Washington. And so we had went to a show, an AEW show one day, maybe in LA, maybe it could be Texas, it could have been somewhere. And so Denise was there, and I remember the Wi-Fi didn't work inside of the arena. And so we had to go into like where the snacks and stuff are to use the Wi-Fi. And I remember being out there, and Denise is out there at the same time, and we were just like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, we didn't even talk. We were just like standing there in the same space, kind of trying to get Wi-Fi. And so I don't know. Over time, they came to a show in San Francisco, and we had a good laugh then, and we kind of just continuously went to shows and developed this relationship. Like, oh, this person's cool. Then we started doing podcasts together, pretty close to when Will Washington was going to leave podcasting, and it just felt cool and it felt natural. And then we did an AEW review one time, or she started doing AEW reviews, and I joined her, and she was like, "Why don't you just join me forever?" And it just kind of sparked from there.
How did it, you brought up Will leaving podcasting there and leaving Grapsody. How did it feel to sort of have another podcast for lack of a better word, take your mind off Will leaving? So you had a new project to focus on, if you know what I mean.
It was perfect timing, I think, Tom, because
that was a very deep question. I do apologize.
No, it's all good. It was just perfect timing, I think. I was in a moving mode. Like, I think I had like 4 podcasts or something at that.
Oh, you did at one point, yeah.
Yeah, I had like Grapsody, I had Indeed with Mike, I had the ROH review show, and then we had Ask Grapsody. So I would do like sometimes 4 podcasts a week, and it was just like chugging along, and I just like was locked into that. And then Will was like, "Oh, hey, I'm leaving to do this," and super excited about it. But the way that like we were doing podcasting was going to change, and so I had to like transition into that. But then Denise came at a time where it started to feel like burnout, maybe, after that, running 4 podcasts a week, like consistently every single week. And some podcasts were talking about WWE, and I don't want to talk about WWE, so I'm feeling like burnt out about that. And it felt so refreshing to podcast with Denise, and specifically to talk about AEW, that I started to feel good about podcasting again. So it came at the right time.
That's really, really cool. So you brought up there, you were doing ROH reviews with the great lady that was with Kate, right?
With Kate. Yeah. Shout out to Kate.
Fightful. So again, how did that come about and things like that?
That one was just easy as Sean, I think, maybe put out a poll on Sean Ross Sapp. Shout out to the homie Sean Ross Sapp, the infamous lead of Fightful. He put out a poll that was like, "We're gonna start an ROH review show. Who do you guys should think should do the show?" And so a bunch of people in the replies were like, "Kate and Red should do it. Kate and Red should do it." They just like said we should, as a duo, do that show. So Sean was like, "Do you guys want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah," because ROH was just about to begin Honor Club, going live every Thursday, and they had some momentum. So I was like, I was locked into ROH at the time, and I had just, on record, we know, saved Ring of Honor to WrestleMania weekend. So I was like, I had a little connection to it. So it was the people, honestly. Shout out to the people.
You brought up there saving Ring of Honor. For the good people that may not know, what does that mean?
All right, so Ring of Honor it's over now. It's funny enough. They used to be connected to WrestleMania weekend. Like, every time WrestleMania had a show, they would also have a show in that same city, in some venue. And so when I started going to WrestleMania weekends in 2009, Ring of Honor had a show there, and it was my favorite part of the weekend. Like, it was like, damn, I like watch Ring of Honor all the time. I love all these guys. I'm actually more interested in seeing them. And so I went to a bunch of them consecutively where Ring of Honor was my favorite part of the weekend. And so when Tony Khan acquired Ring of Honor, I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know if they were going to keep the same kind of schedules, do the same kind of things, be connected to a WWE weekend. Like, there's no way to get around that. And so they had a Super Card of Honor, is what they usually do during WrestleMania weekend, or during some weekend. I don't even remember when it was. Yeah, I think it was after the Super Card of Honor WrestleMania weekend. And so they did a press conference, and afterward, Tony Khan was answering questions, and I was like, Tony Khan, I know you're not very interested in WWE weekends. I didn't say it that explicitly, but like, this weekend, because of what the connection is, are you going to continue to do Super Card of Honor? And then I told that story that I just told you of, like, I'm so connected to this show, and this weekend is so important because of these blah, blah, blah reasons. And he was like, you're right. We should actually continue to do them. And so they continued to do them during WrestleMania weekend for a couple of years because of what I said.
Oh, that's really, really cool, actually, man. You brought up there Grapsody and things like that as well. We've told the story briefly on this show and things like that. How did Grapsody come about before we get into Will Washington's departure, from your perspective, sort of thing?
Will Washington. That's the reason why. I was friends with Phil. We had a relationship through him writing and me being a big fan of his. And so we had talked for a year or two, maybe, about doing a project together, doing some kind of something, not a podcast, or that was the specific thing. It's like, we should do some kind of something together, because I wanted to get into the game, Tom, and change the integrity of what was going on. Now I see that it'll never be changed, but I had hopes and dreams back then, many years ago. And so one time, Will Washington had a podcast for like 17 years, for a long time. And so he started doing a solo podcast on Saturdays, funny enough, where it was like Wrestling with Will Washington or something like that. And
was this
so
with RBR Wrestling?
This was with what?
Was this with RBR Wrestling, or was this a separate thing?
I think this was on the brand, because he owns, I think, RBR or something like that. It's his thing. So it might have been a part of RBR, but it wasn't. It was just like he was trying to make like a separate thing. And
sorry, I interrupted you there. I do apologize.
No, it's all good. And so I did one of those podcasts, one of the early ones of the Saturday Wrestling with Will. And we had a great time. Like, we were just riffing, talking. It was a great conversation. And so at the end of the podcast, he's like, we should do this again. And I was like, yeah, we should do this again, but next time with Philip Lindsay. And he's like, I could see it like a twinkle in his eye. Like, immediately he was like, huh? And so, like, legit, I think the next day he was like, hey, do you guys want to get on a call? And we were like, yeah. And then we got on a call, and he was like, let's do a podcast together. And then, like, that's it, like, moved from there very quickly to Fightful. And then we became that.
You were doing Grapsody for what, 2 years before Will departed?
Yep, year and some, 2 years, yeah, something
like that.
Year and
some change, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah. Year and some change, I'd say.
So how did it then feel to you when the guy who put the podcast together was like, sorry guys, this opportunity's come up, I need to take it?
There was not one hatred bone in my body when I immediately knew the reason, because he told us why. And so I was just like, all happiness. Like, I was like, that's amazing. I can't believe you're getting this super cool opportunity. I need to know more. And so after that, when Phil and I got together and we were like, well, what's it gonna become? Because, like, original Grapsody with Will Washington as like the A mic, as they say, kind of like reining in the chaos, because he knows what podcasting is. He's been doing it for so many years. He knows how to kind of control the situations. And Phil and I were just at the beginning kind of like going ham, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what's this podcast going to be? And so we didn't know if we wanted to, at the beginning, like stick to a 3-person format. Like, I don't think we ever had like any true intentions to get another person onto the pod, but it was like, could we? What if we did? Like, I started to think
Did
about
you have
people
Will's
that,
blessing to not replace him, but you know what I mean? Did
yeah,
you
yeah,
sort of say, if you want to
we
get a third person, that's cool, guys.
it was his blessings to be like, yeah, go forward however you guys please. Like whatever's gonna continue to make this brand the brand, then I'm into it. So he was all like, whatever you guys need to do. He was at offering to help us move forward to whatever we needed. Like he was into that. So Phil and I were like maybe testing. I think we started to have co-hosts and things, people join us like friends and stuff. But then we just figured out, we did a bunch of podcasts of us two, and we're just like, oh, this is it. This works. This is natural. This feels great. Like the flow of just the two of us felt like a natural progression. So we continued to move forward. So at first it felt like, damn, what's going to happen? This is kind of unknown waters. But immediately it was like, oh yeah, we're friends before this. And this is kind of how we talk all the time. It's normal.
I understand what you're saying completely there. I know from my interview with Phil last year that he had his opinions on this, but did you have any intentions of like, yep, Will's gone, the podcast is over now, if you know what I mean?
No, I don't think it was ever in my brain that it was going to be over. I thought there could be, I knew there were going to be changes. I didn't know how drastic more drastic of losing, one of the cornerstones of your pod. But I knew that Phil and I were going to continue to do something. And so I wasn't super worried about that part. Like that, the thing, I was just like, what's the format change going to be more than like, this is all over,
I understand what you're saying completely there. How does it feel on those very rare occasions Will can get back in the hot seat? How does it feel to get him back on the show and things like that?
It's always super funny because we don't usually talk wrestling because that's not really the thing, in the when he's back on, it's not really like, let's talk about wrestling, because he still has a podcast in AEW and he still does Unrestricted and he still that. So he's like, when I'm with you guys, I just want to like be friends and all that. So like one time last year, I went to Denver for his birthday. So I was like staying at his house, and I did Grapsody was that day. And so I got on with Phil, and then we did a bit where Will was in the background, and then he got on. And it just feels like, hey, our old friends back. Let's like talk about this music and this basketball and these random things we used to talk about on the pod again. It just feels like, hey, our old friends back again. It's like a family reunion type vibe.
This might be a very insider baseball question, but and if you can't answer, it will be edited out. I understand. Do you have to get permission from like AEW when you're like, oh, this would be cool to get Will back on? Or do you literally just shoot him a message and say, can you let us know, dude?
Yeah, no, I think it's all permission based now when you're a part of a bigger brand. It's not as easy as like, hey, hop on this podcast right now, because they're worried about things. So yeah, it does. We go through proper channels now in order to make things happen, and everyone should go through proper channels.
Oh, definitely, man. You mentioned there that you thought maybe, if I've got the year wrong, I do apologize, but in like 2023, 2024 time, when you were doing 4 to 5 podcasts a week, you mentioned that you were suffering from burnout possibly and things like that. So, what do you think caused that, my friend?
Wrestling is never ends, Tom. Like, it's like that again right now. It's just so consistent. It's always happening. Every day there's something. I haven't been on the internet in like an hour. There's probably like 20 wrestling stories that go on. It's just constant all the time. It never stops. And so you get to a point where you're like, all right, dude. And so, as you know, I have a very touchy thing on like Twitter, and so like people take my tweets crazy, and so people are on my butt all the time and going crazy on me in my DMs. And so I'm like, and a lot of people are like, I'm dedicating so many hours of my life to cover this and talk about it in a positive way, in a way that gets you guys interested in it. And so I'm doing all this work and not receiving all the benefits that I should, and not the pay, and on the internet people are calling me a dumbass. It's like I don't really know if it's all worth it. That's a constant fight with that as a wrestling content creator. I kind of hate that the word though, but like a wrestling in this space of like, it's so selfless because you get into this to cover other people. Like I that's my whole intention of getting into this, is like, when you listen to me though, when you listen to Righteous Reg, I want you to leave knowing another wrestler. I want you to leave with a better interest for the game, because I love pro wrestling so much. But when you feel like you're at that space and people are saying you're not this, and it doesn't feel like there's any rewards in it, it could get to burnout. And I know friends and people in the space that have gotten to that place, because you feel like you do so much work and there's not that many rewards. But then you get one reward, Tom, and we were at AEW All In weekend and Starcast, and there were so many amazing supporters that came up to Phil, came up to and told us how much Grapsity means to them, or how much a bunch of people were like telling me how much the watch along and post show with Denise is important to them, and they watch it with their family or they do whatever. And it just, those little things are like, okay, this is all worth it. It does feel like there are a bunch of people that want this and need this and crave what I do. So it makes it worth it.
I understand what you're saying completely there. What have you put in place now, maybe that you weren't doing during the 2024, 2023 times when you were podcasting, and more podcasting, to maybe avoid that burnout again, Reg?
Oh, I don't watch as much as I was watching then. It feels like every time I turned on my TV back then, wrestling was on, or if my TV was on something, like wrestling was on my phone. Now it's like, if wrestling isn't on, I've been binge watching King of the Hill, brand new episodes that I need to catch up on.
What a show.
I've been binge watching the entire series for like, it feels like months now. Like I've just been covering that with something else, getting into that, doing other ventures and projects that I can't fully get into right now, that are very interesting and that have kept my mind occupied in other ways. And I still casually watch pro wrestling because I love it, and independent wrestling definitely exists in that space. But I try to just stick to now the wrestling that I like. I wasn't hate watching back then, but I was watching because I thought I had to, and now I know I don't have to.
I believe is the term.
Yeah, exactly. Now I know I don't have to watch what I don't want to.
I understand what you're saying completely there, and things like that. Who is the podcast that maybe you don't do anymore, or that you're like, oh, if I could find a spot with this person, it could be a different creator, it could be a podcast you did before that you're like, I'd love to pick that up again, or I'd love to work with this person.
I know what you're saying here, Tom. I hear what you're saying. I think you're a big fan of Indeed, and so was I. Like Mike is like, that's my homie. He has just joined on to Denise's and I watch along as the editor. So we're on a podcast in spirit now, because he's like on every podcast that I'm on with Denise now. But I love to do something. I don't have as much time. Like I can't do a weekly podcast. I don't think any one of us could do a weekly podcast, but some kind of something where we just get on and riff and talk about independent wrestling, because it needs more people talking about it. Like honestly, since we've stopped doing the podcast, there's some other people that do it, but it feels like there's not as much that needs to be talked about that's being talked about.
That's really, really cool. What is the one thing you maybe miss podcasting with Mike about? Or you miss Mike and miss about Mike when podcasting, sort of thing? That was very wordy. I could not get that out.
No, it's all good. I hear exactly what you're saying in there. One is our when we stopped doing Indeed and we looked at our interview list because we were doing interviews every single week, Tom. Like it didn't start as that. It started as we had like a format and we were gonna watch matches and review them in this way, but we just like became that platform for independent wrestlers that came on. And we had so many independent wrestling friends that were consistently like, hey, let's do your pod, let's do your pod, let's do this. And then every show I would go to, it was like Indeed, Indeed, Indeed. And so I was just so like, I'm still, again, I'll say it for probably the 15th time in independent wrestling. And if you don't know independent wrestling, figure it out, dude. But interviewing wrestlers every week and getting to be so in like that was great. And beyond that, just it was Mike and I both like to indulge in a certain thing. And so we would go on the pod and we just riff and have a great time. And a lot of times we just be super silly. And the most loose that I could be on a podcast was with Mike. So I think I'm just attaching those memories to like, oh, there was like no inhibitions. I could just go on there and have a great time. And like, you need that feeling, Tom.
What gives you that feeling currently, Reg, within podcasting, within wrestling, or is that something that you can't replicate because of what you and Mike had?
No, I with Denise and Phil, they're both my friends. So if I'm feeling down and out, or if they're feeling down and out, if any kind of situation like that is happening, we still get onto a podcast on Wednesdays and Saturdays and get to talk and riff and have friends and have fun with a friend. And there's a bunch of supporters that appreciate what they're watching and appreciate what they're listening to. And I'm just on either joking with Denise, or joking on Denise, or she's joking on me, or we're talking about some wild thing and I'm just having the best time, or feel like we're talking about things that interest me to my core, like either hip hop or wrestling or basketball or some movie or TV show that I grew up on, like things that Phil and I would do that if we didn't have Grapsity. And like, I need that conversation every week because it just fulfills me, you know?
Definitely. We talked about as well. I can't believe we completely skipped over your music stuff and things like that. I do apologize, man. Like,
no, you're good.
The conversation's gone. But
it's wrestling.
How important is it to you to get in the studio every so often and just lay down a track, even if you don't air it? Because I know that's part of your creative process as well.
Totally. It's in these times, I don't want to sound like that guy, Tom, but in these times, with everything that's consistently happening, like there's things in my brain that I can't express through podcasting. Like, even though we do talk about hip hop and we do talk about Phil and I will talk about current events to start Grapsity and like get into stuff like that. I need another outlet where I just talk this stuff out because there's a lot of stuff in there that's like, damn, this is crazy. What is it like to be you in these times with what's going on? So I have to like express that. And I've been rapping for like 20 plus years. And that was always my way to, no matter what's going on, I have that creative outlet to say whatever I want to say as Righteous Reg and to lay those things down. So to constantly have ideas that need to be pushed out and to be able to express that outlet. And sometimes it just exists in my computer. It's like needed, like my soul needs to be replenished, and hip hop is how I do it.
That's really, really cool. I had this conversation with Iridian from Fightful years ago. I'm curious to know your thoughts. When you've rapped all day or when you've produced a song all day, do you have to step away from music? Because a lot of us use music in our free time to decompress. So how do you feel about that sort of thing?
Well, I never step away from music. There's never a time. That's the only thing that's consistent and never will. I'll never be like, no music today. Like, that's always going to be a thing. I like rock music so much, Tom, that like if I'm burnt out on hip hop, there was a time where I was like, hip hop is blah, blah, blah. There's first of all, there's too much music to ever get burnt out. Like if I'm burnt out on my own stuff, there's 500 rappers that I love or 500 rock bands that I love. So there's no way to do it, honestly. Like, if I'm only time I'm like, oh, all right, I've had enough of my stuff is when I'm about to release and I have to make sure all the stuff sounds how I want. But other than that, I'm just like, I don't listen to my stuff on a consistent basis because that's not really the vibes and it's not for me, it's for other people. So no, not really, never.
What did it mean to you to get a song in a game, but also in AEW and things like that?
There's a couple of things that I've done through podcasting and being in this space that I either one never knew were possible. I didn't know that I could even think to do that because I didn't think that would be a thing, or that were like bucket list things. And these are bucket list things. Like, when I got pitched and all this started happening that I was going to be a part of AEW's Fight Forever, their video game, it didn't seem real for so long, Tom. Like, it's like there's a process that happens to get your music into it, and the time before and the game, there was the stuff surrounding the game. So it was time. But when it eventually came out, and so you play it and your music is playing while you're wrestling and while you're fighting, and thinking about being younger and how much of an influence music and wrestling video games had, or if it didn't have music on it, playing my own music while I'm playing the wrestling video games and the connection that that has. And to now know, and to people were sending me videos of them playing and my music in the background, there's nothing I think that is cooler than that. Like, that's still like, I forget about it and then I remember and I'm like, that is unbelievable. I can't even imagine how I got into that. And the couple of times that I've had my song played during an AEW event, some whether it's Brian Keith's entrance theme, Paige Van Zant, or the Big Homie Powerhouse Hobbs, those have been like my heart can't even imagine how it feels so amazing. Like, I can't even put into words how great that feels, but it's like bucket list stuff, Tom.
Something you talked about there is being a kid and things like that, and memories of being a kid. So if you could have a conversation with 10-year-old Reg, or maybe whatever age you started liking wrestling, what do you think he'd think of everything you're doing now with the podcasting, with the rapping, everything in between?
He'd be like, you're lying. There's no way. That brings me back to reality all the time, Tom. That's what I think. I'm like, what would 10-year-old Reg think of writing for PWI and being a part of the committee that chooses who's the number one wrestler in the world every year, or having your own 500 list that's influential across wrestling, and wrestling promoters have told you that they book shows off of your list. Or very recently, I'm now getting into wrestling commentating, or like, now you're a wrestling commentator on wrestling shows sometimes. Like, 10-year-old me would be like, you're lying, dude. There's no way. Or I could name like 20 different things that would blow that kid's mind. And so when I do, back to the burnout thing, when I do get to that phase, I do sit and reflect on, well, damn, you've done a lot of really cool things, though, with given the resources and things that you have. And you have to really appreciate those things. And I do tend to sit back and reflect and appreciate.
With everything you've done, you talk about appreciating things like that and things like that. What would your advice be for anyone that wants to be in your space, whether it be the rapping, whether it be the podcasting, the writing, everything, etc.?
Definitely. Find your niche in this niche space. Like, it's so many podcasters, so many interviewers, so many content creators are consistently doing things. There's people on TikTok, there's people on Twitter, there's people on Instagram, there's people on Facebook pushing this thing on a daily basis. What's going to separate you from all those people? Why is somebody going to pick Righteous Reg over Dave Meltzer, over Tom Campbell over, you know what I mean? Like I could go on for a million
Oh
years.
yeah.
Like, why are they going to choose you over Righteous Reg? Like, what do you bring to this space that's going to get these people to recognize you and want to choose you? You be unique. Bring your own takes. Don't bring other people's stuff. But the most important thing, I think the reason that I'm here now, Tom, is cliche enough consistency. People know when to listen to my podcast. They know when they're going to hear Righteous Reg's voice, and that hasn't changed. We've been the Saturday podcast for 4 years now at this point, coming up on 4 years here in October. At the same time, same day for 4. That's the most consistent thing. I've been doing the Denise podcast for 2 years. AEW Dynamite's on Wednesday, every Wednesday. You can't forget about that. Like, you know where to catch me. Just be consistent and be consistent when you're doing those things. So every time somebody watches me, they're going to get the Righteous Reg experience. Sometimes I could be tired or down or all those things, but most consistently, you're going to see this person, you're going to hear this person, going to give you jokes, going to give you knowledge. I'm going to give you the things that I give you. So if you're consistent with it, you're passionate about it, and you bring some kind of unique ability to it, that's the way I think to go.
That's really, really cool. You mentioned some creators, whether it be Tom Campbell and people like that. Who are the creators outside of you and Phil and outside of you and Denise that you're like, you should check them out? They do very good work, guys.
Yes, definitely. Gotta shout out my homegirl, Queen of the Ring. She does some tremendous work. I like her new format that she switched to with kind of on the on the run reviews and things like that. She's doing some tremendous work. Shout out to the homie Cresta. She's always being featured on Grapsity. She's kind of like a pseudo Grapsity member. The homies
Honestly,
in the public.
if you were gonna have a third person, I would love it to be Cresta because I love your chemistry.
Yeah, and like when I was thinking of people that could potentially come in more often when Will left, like Cresta was like immediately into my brain. Also, shout out to the homie SP3 because I think like when I thought of like who's knowledgeable that could be slotted in here immediately, and people the shit would kind of be the same, the flow would be the same. SP3 was immediately like, oh damn, like who would represent like that Will Washington spot? He was the guy that I was like, that guy is great. Shout out to SP3. If you guys haven't seen his work or read his work or
As we
any like
record
that,
this, the latest
great
thing
guy.
the one on the channel is with SP3.
There you go. Like Tom definitely knows, he's been in tune. That guy puts out some tremendous work.
I fully agree with you, man. This is a very self-indulgent question as we start wrapping this up, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I always do. But as a podcaster yourself, as a great interviewer, where can I improve? What did you enjoy? Everything in between, my friend.
I think it's great, man. I think everything that you did was good with me. You, like I said, the thing that I think is most important here is consistency, and I see that you do that, and I think that's what you encompassed in this interview here. It's like, you know what the points you want to hit, you know where you want to go with it, and I think that's really what it's all about. It's if when I'm interviewing with somebody, I want to feel like they're engaged, and I feel like you were engaged the whole time. You know, like if you're, you've probably done interviews where you're talking and the people are just like on their phone or like in another world or something. You know what I mean? So like if we're just in this doing this together, that's all I really care about.
I really appreciate that, man. It's a bit of a harsh question, but I think it's funny, so I'm gonna go with it. Why did it take so long to get you back on this show, man? Because I've had a great.
It's exactly what we described on here. I was like, Grapsity is 4 hours most of the time. The Denise and I watch along is up 4 hours pretty much with the post show. Like every week I'm talking for 8 hours every single week. And so when I'm not doing that, I just don't a lot of the times. Like I don't do a lot of podcasts because I'm like, dude, who would want to listen to me on another podcast when they're listening to me talk for 8 hours every single week? So it was just time But like I said, consistency, you had consistently shot me DMs and were consistently in contact with me. And I was like, got to get back to Tom. So I got back to Tom.
I really appreciate that, man. I've really enjoyed it. And do you feel like it's been a worthy thing of your time, my friend?
Definitely. This helps me reflect. You know what I mean? Because when you're just going, as you know, Tom, you could forget. Like you can not, time moves by so fast too. So when it's like, oh, Will's been gone for this amount of time, or Denise and I've been doing it for this amount of time, or Grapsity's this amount of time, like I just forget. And to do interviews like this, it's great to get that reminder.
That's really, really cool, my friend. As we start wrapping this up, I'm going to have two sort of questions before we do my traditional generic wrestling questions wrap up segment. How do you define success, Reg? And would you view your career as a success if you stepped away, personally?
Yeah, yes, I would say that what I set out to accomplish in this space, I think I've done it. Like if I just did the BW 500, like that's my baby. Like I'd be like I could leave the space knowing like that influence is what defines Righteous Reg. Like I wanted to create that list. I wanted to shine a light on Black pro wrestlers and Black pro wrestling. And when I talk to people that are on the list and wrestlers that know about it and they tell me what it means to them, like that's enough for me. Like I'm good here. But I think beyond that, like creating, like I said, the people that were talking to us during Starcast and what they said about Grapsity and what it means to them and what it us as Black podcasters and what we represent in the space. Like I feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do, continuously shine a light on pro wrestling. Like if I was done today, I feel like I'm successful at it. Money is a different story, but like we could talk about a different podcast here. We're doing
I understand what you're saying. What do you think your legacy is in this space, Reg?
Oh, I just said it. The BW 500, like the 500 best Black pro wrestlers of the year. What wrestlers have told me that list means to them and what it represents in the space, and just knowing the impact that's had. Like I want that on I wanted to say hashtag BW500 on my gravestone. You know what I mean? Like that is my, like I love that and what it represents. And so that's it. But beyond that, it's just like I want people to know, I want people to be like, damn, that Righteous Reg was knowledgeable. That Righteous Reg was funny. He had some great bits, spot foo, flipping and spinning. Like this guy, I enjoyed listening to what he brought to the game.
That's really, really cool, Reg. And a beautiful way to end this, if I'm honest. But as we we're going to do the classic Tom Talks Rubbish wrap-up segment called Generic Wrestling Questions.
Yes.
Those of you that have seen my interviews before, when I asked Reg his favorite match of all time, his favorite pay-per-view card of all time, favorite wrestler's entrance theme of all time, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler. Basically, the questions, I assume, Reg, you're asked on social media or in live streams. So now you'll have a place to be like, guys, I have watched this. I have answered this. Please go watch this. I butchered my own thing there. But what's your favorite match of all time?
You are so funny, Tom. Yeah, we'll have a space where I can send people to hear these generic answers, but that they always are interested in.
So what's your favorite match of all time, my friend?
It's funny because earlier I was talking about AEW and how you could see your favorite match on a random Wednesday night. They've had so many in legit like the last 2 years that like Swerve versus Bryan Danielson at All In. That match, Swerve came in looking like a super villain. It's Bryan Danielson's he's on his way out of here, but he's still Bryan Danielson. That match that they put together, his family comes in at the end. Like it's hard to think of what you're gonna hear in the rest of my answers, what these two guys represent, and like I think right now, if I had to choose one match, and it could be recency bias, even though it was a year ago, it could be. It's just what these two guys represent. I think Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland from AEW All In is my favorite match of all time at this point.
What about your favorite overall pay-per-view card, my friend?
See, that one's much harder because there's been a bunch that I like love and that I've been a part of. Like, I'm thinking recently of like AEW Revolution 2025. The ending was kind of flat, but like the bulk of like Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in that cage match, and thinking about what it was to live in that moment, man. And that's probably going to be the hardest one just because I've been to so many and I'd have to sit down and look at the cards and put myself back in that moment. But I'll just say Revolution 2025 for.
That's really, really cool, my friend. This is probably going to be the hardest one for you as a music guy. But what about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme of all time, my friend?
Ooh, that is a hard one. Oh, man. Of all time, I think, damn, because like Stone Cold's Glass Break, like Stone Cold's Glass regular entrance music, like that's probably like when you think of becoming a pro wrestler, when you think of like what would be cool, like some glass shattering, some hard. I don't know if you get curse on here. Sorry about that. A hard guitar.
We're far enough in that I won't get demonetized. You can.
Okay, cool. A hard guitar riff, just like, and you just walk down looking like the hardest guy in the world. Like, I don't know. Anytime I hear entrance music, I know it's like a basic one. Like that one just hits so hard because it feels like that what defines what a pro wrestler is.
Have you been in the building for a Stone Cold Glass Break?
Yeah, but it was no, actually, yeah. No, I think about it. I did go to wrestling shows. Yes, I have been. I was like, no, I haven't until blah blah blah. But you know, like that infamous video that you see of Stone Cold and Booker T fighting in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That happened in my hometown of Bakersfield, California.
No way.
And I was at that show. So like I've been a part of some pretty infamous, I think, Stone Cold Steve Austin moments, that one specifically.
Oh, that's really cool, man. What about your favorite tag team, my friend?
Favorite tag team of all time? That's an easy one. Don't have to think for any amount of time. Nick and Matt Jackson, the Young Bucks. There's no team. Like you can say, like anybody that says this answer on their show, Tom, always responds with them is what wrestling promotion did they start? Like next time from here on out, like if somebody's like, oh, the Rockers, the Street Profits, oh, Harlem Heat, be like, well, what wrestling promotion did they start? And there's only one time, one response, one tag team that you can respond to that with, and that is Nick and Matt Jackson, the Young Bucks. Everything that I do now, the reason that I love pro wrestling is AEW, and AEW exists off the backs of what Nick and Matt Jackson did. I've watched so many amazing moments with them in Reseda, California, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Like they just define what I love about pro wrestling, and they're back to doing that right now every Wednesday. Nick and Matt, the Young Bucks, like not even a competition, Tom.
Favorite Young Bucks match?
Oh, that's a hard one. No, that is not a hard one. I was there. Now they have a million of them. Like you could go through a list, but I was just there at Texas and All In, AEW All In, the Young Bucks versus Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. Unbelievable. Being there live, feeling the energy of the crowd, knowing these are four of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and they're going mental, they're going insane, they're doing some of the craziest spots you've ever seen in your entire life. That's the one right now.
That's really, really cool. And then finally, Reg, the biggest generic question in my opinion, who is your favorite overall wrestler of all time, my friend?
Favorite overall wrestler of all time, I've already mentioned his name. He's in my favorite match of all time, Bryan Danielson. You guys, like I have such a funny connection to Bryan Danielson throughout the years as a wrestling fan. In 2001, when wrestling changed completely, WCW and ECW were dead within a month. I didn't know what wrestling was going to become. I started loving independent wrestling. At that time, Bryan Danielson was the talk of the town, but I was not a Bryan Danielson fan upon initial watching and upon initial viewing because I didn't get it. But as soon as I started to get it, about a year or two later, he became the guy, and his resume and what he's done throughout wrestling, it's going to be hard to replicate. And he's defined what an independent wrestler can be to becoming a major TV wrestling star. So Bryan Danielson's the guy.
That's really cool, my friend. As we wrap this up, Reg, obviously, I want to say thank you for a great conversation. I'm so glad we finally got you back on the show, my friend, and everything in between. But the question I end the show on is, I believe as YouTubers, podcasters, even just people with social media, we're all sort of going to live forever in a very, very weird way, if you think about the word. So what is one piece of content you're like, yeah, you guys can remember me for that. I'm very happy with it. And then, no, guys, please don't remember me for that.
I don't know if I have any please don't remember me for that, unless your perception of me is that I'm an AEW grifter, which I'm not. I'm not a WWE like watcher hater. I just don't watch that shit usually. So I don't want you to remember me for being that. But remember just Grapsity Reg of being a knowledgeable, silly guy that you can go to that's going to recommend you some dope independent wrestling. It's going to recommend you a dope hip hop album. Just remember me for who I am.
That's a beautiful way to end this, if I'm honest. But as we do, Reg, please promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
Like we've mentioned on the show, Grapsity is every Saturday on the Fightful YouTube with Philip Lindsay. That's my homeboy. Denise and I, the California Connection, do a podcast every Wednesday. The AEW Watch Along starts when AEW starts, and then we do a post show immediately after. RighteousReg.bandcamp.com is where you can hear my music. AEW Fight Forever. Again, if you want to play a wrestling video game and hear my music in it, that's the place. I got a bunch of really cool things happening. And like when Tom and I have this conversation in a year, things are going to be very different in the year in a good way. So I'm excited.
That's really cool to hear, my friend. And obviously, I want to thank you again for a great conversation. But as we wrap this up, guys, obviously, I want to thank you all for watching. But if you guys like this, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Talks Rubbish. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.